Grand Rising family, it is Shay Seeking, and this is Not Your Mama's Bible Study, along with a little bit of his story lied. So, I guess, again, I'm kind of proud of myself for getting this all through within 24 hours or so. So I want to go ahead and go and read this here article to give us a little bit more insight or see if we can find more correlations that have to do with the book of John and the biblical text and this historical matter. It's important to do this so we can bring things, again, we can remove our heads out of the clouds and come down to reality and be grounded in what we're actually really talking about here. There's people that say there's no such, that the Bible is all lies. There's no such thing as this and that, but I want to give you guys a different outlook on things. No, there's no such thing as a God in the sky, in my opinion. The only sky God there is the one that is hovering over you or in a higher elevated status in the governing forces. What that includes is all of the presidents, okay? We already talked about this from Genesis, how God wanted them to preside, okay? And to replenish the earth and subdue the earth, meaning so-called so-called aboriginal people, okay? Or original peoples of a land before it was colonized or so-called conquered, okay? So when we're talking about the waters, we've already gone through all of the etymology and looking into this, which we can very well be talking about the maritime, and the Bible actually uses this term to describe some of these people. It's the maritime families, okay? And those are of the waters, okay? So when we're talking about washing yourself with waters, we're not talking about, like the Bible says here, some people think this means a baptism of some such of water. Now, this doesn't mean the water you're talking about, like water that you wash yourself. This is talking about watered down. I like to use that term Israelite to describe what these people would be. If Israel was the archetype, then the Israelites. And again, since we're dealing with amalgamation, since we're dealing with the wiping out of a certain of the original gods, okay, which already had something residing in them that has that being under the so-called control of another group of foreign entities, they have lost that along with their standing in the land or in the earth. Okay, so again, those people that are the earthlings that they call animals in the Bible and in historical matter, in historical material, would be Aboriginal people. Okay, so we're talking about things like this. Okay, so I want to go ahead and read this to you guys so we can get on with it, because I found something interesting last night in video number 3 that we found together, and I wanted to kind of just expand on it a little bit, or try to just see if we can find something there. So this is Nicodemus, a black pioneer town. And it says Nicodemus, Kansas, in 1885. I told you guys I found it funny that you see this man standing on the roof because, again, there is said to be Nicodemus and Jesus were sitting on the roof. It just so happens that a lot of these people were building their dwellings underground in some kind of like earthly huts as well in this town. And that John Brown had told his daughter to always be on the lookout. She was like the lookout for the place. Okay, so again, what we're doing here is correlating acts and things and people that were doing certain works in his story around the time that John Brown, which I believe is a form of a Jesus, not to be worshipped, but we're just examining the word and just saying what we think we're seeing here. So that would mean that these people are mere people that existed not that long ago in our historical, but they've used different terminology okay, in order to indoctrinate you in church as to these figures being some kind of fantasy or mythical something. Okay, when we look at everything else that's supposed to be mythical as just that, but we're supposed to believe this, or use faith to interpret what we're and just reading the Bible, and you know not doing any real deep studying on the terms that we're using in order to indoctrinate you and give you a false perception or a false notion of something. Where on the historical aspect, they've done the same thing. They've taken you as a youth and brought you into the school system or the education system in order to indoctrinate you on another level with these same people, as looking at them as historical people. Okay? So what I'm saying is, why are there so many correlations? Why does it seem like it's talking about this in John 3 almost word for word? Why are some of the names the same? Because they'll say, oh, this name was given to a town after the Bible. But in my eyes, I don't think that that's true. I think it's writing right alongside with the Bible, because this is the biblical story. But they've changed the narrative. They've changed the narrative to fit their agenda, and changed the timeline is all. Okay. So the thing that I did on Nebuchadnezzar, and Nebuchadnezzar, and I compared him to another guy. I can't remember the name right off the top of my head, but the timeline, let's just say for Nebuchadnezzar, was 587 AD or BC or BCE or something. Well, the story sounded so similar to something else to me that I went ahead and put the 1 back in front of the 587, and that's how we got the person that I was. Then we have 1587, and that's how I got the storyline and the figures that I wanted to expand on and look to see if these fit the criteria. So I use certain things like that to guide me to search. And the stories were pretty much almost, they like to give details in the biblical aspect, and they give small details in the historical, because if they give you too many, then you'll be able to see that these two collide. Okay. This is why I feel like they don't teach American Indian history alongside with their history in the Bible, because again, we'll start to see the similarities, and we would know that the whole thing with the American Indian is the African American in a sense. Okay. So anyways, let's just keep going. I am anxious to reach your state because of the sacredness of her soil. Now look at this, what we're talking about here in the biblical text. They're talking about waters, right? Okay. Now, I told you guys these waters can be, and when I say water down the bloodlines, that means of your aboriginal standing, or your aboriginal genotype or phenotype, or your genetic makeup. Because yes, America was set apart from all of those others. Again, they are still somewhat family before they became or came and grafted into the American Indian. Again, I think that, again, we want to look at so-called Africa as the motherland, but I feel that America has her own standing, or may even have like our pyramids are older than theirs. Okay. So I think that the roles have been reversed. Okay. Things didn't go too well for them over there. And so they came to look for another more pleasant land. And I like to look at it as Aden or Eden. And these are some terms that these people were using, in antiquity to describe what they thought they found when they came here. And again, this Columbo, or him as Columbus, he knew exactly what he was looking for when he came here. And the so-called European or Caucasian man, along with the darker hue brother of his, and that's why I call that continent. I look at it as one whole continent, or one whole landmass or planet. Okay, like we looked at it the other day, and it says that these people are foreign; they come from another planet, meaning another, and we're looking at it as another plane. Okay. Another portion of land, because planet was not saying what we thought planet is supposed to mean. So again, we're waiting for some aliens to invade from outer space, but they've already invaded from another landmass. If you get my drift, okay? So let's go. The sacredness of her soil washed by blood of humanitarians. Now, we could look at humanitarians, which we'll probably just go ahead and do in a second, but we're already using human for this is not pertaining to aboriginals, the origines or originals of this land, okay? Because those would be the earth or the earthlings, or they would call them animals, plants and animals. A lot of times in history and in the biblical text, this is what we're talking about, okay? And then the lower caste, in the caste system, the servants, the commoners, and I can't remember the other term that they use, those would be also a form of a animal, more so likely a fowl of the air, and multiply. I believe that these people represent some sort of the fowl of the air in a sense, but I'm speaking maybe too soon, but some of these people I think are representing that. Okay, so let's see. Nicodemus, okay, so yeah, for the cause of freedom. Okay, so again, washed by the blood. Okay, so again, washed by the blood. Now, isn't that what they say about the blood of Christ, in a sense? If you really want to go there, if you know what I'm saying, if you're not willing to go there, then this probably ain't the right channel. But are you really willing to just look at this real quick? Okay, because they call it Bloody Kansas because of John Brown and his works. Okay, so it says S.L. Johnson, and again, I told you guys I'm going to break down these names later on and bring them back to you in just like a brief video. Okay, but it's funny how they're not using the full names here. So it says S.L. Johnson. Again, we have John, son. Are we talking about a son of John? These last names, these surnames, they really do mean something. And when you look them up, when it comes to heraldry and family lines and crest and bloodlines and things like this, you'll start to get a better feel for what I'm trying to say. Okay, we're talking about John and his disciples and all these things in this chapter. It's just really, if someone has all the power to plan, is it a plan that happened later on because they knew that they were going to control everything, the course of everything? So is it really just a plan, or is it prophecy? Okay, prophecy, or what was I trying to say? Again, I would really like to see a 1611 Bible if anyone has one or can point me in the direction of one, or they have one that's older, like of antiquity. I would really love to see what it says. But again, at a certain point in time, people could not have the Bible. The Bible was only for church, and the person that caps the Lord with just God in all caps, with, and then God with just a capital G. It's doing something here. It's manipulate. You can't see it, but it's subconsciously getting you to try to group everything together when that's not the real case. Okay, so if we're talking about African Americans, why not keep talking about African Americans? Why did you just change the term a sentence or two later? Same thing like the Bible does. If we're talking about God, why change it to Lord God later, like 2 sentences down? It doesn't make any sense. Okay, so yeah, okay. Having an important role in American history. Okay, it's pioneering spirit, we already read that. Okay, for real freedom. Okay, the semi-ghost town has since gained recognition as a national historic site. In the late 18, what is going on with me today? It's early. I'm trying to get in the swing of things, okay? In the late 1870s, the black population of the South was extremely restless, okay? They were tired. Just like we were talking about yesterday, spiritually, physically, mentally, okay, as the Reconstruction following the Civil War failed to bring long awaited freedom. But what it did bring was another population that is documented as coming over here as Slavic people in the 1800s. Okay, so remember that. Equality and prosperity. Instead, they were racially oppressed, poverty stricken, debt ridden, and starving. Okay, so then now what are you going to do then? You know what I'm saying? You're going to go sign yourself right back up to be enslaved, just like I think that some of these so-called natural disasters that's been happening to certain places may not be by mistake. They may be, in a sense, someone may be using something like HARP or something else in order to get these things to happen, because a certain time has come, and it's time up for these particular people. So what they do is cause something to happen and then come with the solution, so that then you're coming back to them in a sense, and you don't get something for nothing, is all I'm saying. Okay, so the Exodusters en route to Kansas by Harper Weekly in 1879. So these are the people of Exodus coming into this this town. Okay. At this time, along came a white man by the name of W.R. Hill, who described a promised land. These are the terms that they're choosing to use. And this is why I can't just look past this in that way, so passive. Okay? In Kansas to black families in the backwoods, or is that the wilderness? You see what I'm saying? Is that the wilderness? Do you see what I'm saying? Because we're talking about the wilderness here in John 3. Okay? Of Kentucky and Tennessee. Okay, so I'm going to have to go look at what was going on here in Tennessee. That already just gave me something to go ahead and look in. Because I know that this John Brown had formed something like this in the Blue Mountains, and I don't know exactly where that is. I'm going to have to look and see. I don't know if it... I thought it was more north. But, you know, I don't know. Okay? And then, oh, you know what that's reminding me of? When John's... one day someone began an argument with John's disciples, telling them that Jesus' baptism was best. So they came to John and said, Master, the man you met on the other side of the river Jordan, of the Jordan River, are we talking some other river, the Mississippi or something of that matter? Let's see where Kentucky and Tennessee are located. We'll do that later on too, so we don't get sidetracked, or you can do it on your own if I forget. So let's see where, if there's anything in between Kentucky and Tennessee and then these towns here. Okay, because this might then let you know that we could possibly be talking about that particular river, you know, being called the Jordan. This is how they've done it. This is just how to keep things under wraps for certain people to only understand what's going on here. So it says, the one you said was the Messiah. He is baptizing too. So remember yesterday we looked up what the Messiah said in these notes here, and it says the Son of Man. So that one that is the Son of Man is baptizing too. Okay. And everyone is going over there instead of coming here to us. John replied, God in heaven appoints each man his work, so on and so on. Okay, so again, they were on the two different sides of the river trying to do somewhat of the same thing. So it's just making me think what we're talking about here. Okay. And are we talking? Okay. Hill told of a of a sparsely settled territory with abundant wild game. Again, Are these talking some kind of fowl? The pigeons. I'm thinking Pigeon Hill or Pigeon something. I was watching something about a war yesterday, or no, it was something that had something to do with John Brown, and it was Pigeon Hill or Pigeon something. Oh my goodness, I can't remember. Anyways, wild horses that could be tamed. Again, wild horses, chattel, cattle, horses, bucks. You know, I'm just wondering. Um, or is it some kind of symbol for a certain people, um, like serpent tribes or serpent people or horse tribes or different tribes that would have to, the point is here and in the biblical text, you have to look deeper when they say something like that. Okay. It could really be talking about horses, but at the same time, and look at this. Is this a donkey? So around that time, people was using donkeys over here. And this is a mule or a donkey. Okay, just like this is some kind of calf or cattle or something like this. But this right here, this is not a horse. I would not think that the ears and stuff is telling me something different. So, anyways, okay, that could be tamed. Okay, well, they already know horses can be tamed. So why would you be saying? What do you mean, wild horses? If they tame wild horses up until this time, what the hell you mean by wild horses that could be tamed? That don't make no sense. See, so these horses must be what I want to use this word and I can't now find it. Used to describe something else, okay, or someone else, okay. And again, at this point in time, you were still animals, or you maybe even still be today. Again, because you're not people. I've already looked into what people are, and you're not people. So, spiritually, you are the earth. You're the earth. You're the earthlings. But there's no race called that. And that will take you back to the earliest, oldest. But if you have to, then Aboriginal. That is a term used to apply to. But again, whose term? Who made it up? You know? Aboriginal is still having some ties to the earth or the land or being that. Humans and people, when we go there and mankind, that's not original. It has been created. And some of these people grafted into the originals, which makes offspring, which would be indigenous people in some instances. So again, you're still not being looked at as people. In the Declaration of Independence, we the people does not include you. Again, that is them. And they're standing over you. Okay? And us giving the power to them to do so. Okay? Because they gain the power to do this from those that are governed. And when you look at who is governed or what governed means, that doesn't describe anyone but the people that are being put down. More than likely, the melanated people or the originals of that land, not because of your skin color, but because who you are and where you were when they found you and what they've been stealing and raping since and pillaging. And it also oh my goodness. Y'all, this is not usually I'm really good on Fridays. Yeah, so okay. Okay. Oh, and I was gonna say in poor whites, which are the people at the bottom of the pyramid that are at least in the pyramid or the house of God, the servants and the servants, okay, in the caste system, okay, and the opportunity to own land through the homesteading process in Nicodemus, Kansas, okay. So it says the town site of Nicodemus was planned in 1877 by W.R. Hill, a land developer from Indiana, and Reverend W.H. Smith, a black man. Forming Nicodemus Town Company, Reverend Smith became the president of the town company and Hill, the treasurer, okay, named for a legendary figure that came to America. Now, see, at first what they were telling me is it's named after something in the Bible. But now we're finding out, no, it's named after a legendary figure. I don't know why we just don't say who it is right here. Maybe they will. that came to America on a slave ship, okay, and later purchased his freedom. The two founders aggressively promoted the town to the black refugees or exodusters of the Deep South. The Reverend Simon P. Roundtree was the first settler, arriving in June 18th, 1877. Zach T. Fletcher and his wife, Jenny Smith Fletcher, the daughter of Reverend W. H. Smith, okay, arrived in July, and Fletcher was named the secretary of the town company. Smith, Roundtree, and Fletcher made claims to their property and built temporary homes in dugouts along the prairie. The Nicodemus Town Company produced numerous circulars to promote the town. We saw some of those yesterday in number 3, in part 3 of this mini-series. Okay? Inviting colored. Now we're using colored. Okay? So now we're using colored people of the United States to come and settle in the Great Solomon Valley. The Reverend Roundtree became actively involved in the promotion and the work with a man by the name of Benjamin Pap Singleton, a black carpenter from Nashville who traveled all over distributing circulars. And I think that this is also a model that we can use today in order for those who are serious and are ready to separate, to start forming such things. Again, I'm not soliciting, I'm just saying that it would be something that people could use these things as a model, possibly, okay, in order to do the same thing, okay, who could not read or write, okay. And again, this is what I'm talking about, y'all. It's 2020. We've been in this game. Some of us, I've been doing this type of work along with the indigenous aboriginal works, or the hidden history of America and so-called black folks, for about 6-7 years now. So, I mean, every single day hitting it. You know what I'm saying? Even like on Facebook, one of my friends was saying something about, you know, it seems like what happened to the groups or the people that were, you know, like acting as, or the warriors from last year and probably even the year before that, that were really spitting things, you know, online. But I think that, again, it may be that some of them have fallen by the wayside. They may be wrapped up in doing other things. They may be moving and progressing. They may not, but we're, you know, as long as we're all doing something towards this and spreading the word, we're doing our part. But what I'm saying is, it is kind of time to stop just circulating the information amongst each other that already know. Yes, we're going to keep in tune with each other anyways, because we're vibing off of each other. We're at that same frequency, or we're trying to get to, or certain frequencies with dealing with people. Okay? Again, we are going to be the ones that you're going to be looking to. Just not going to be nobody coming out of the sky. Okay? So, and if he was coming out of the sky, he's going to come out of the government. Or she. Like, I don't know. I'm thinking this Candace Owens chick, the way they trying to ride her and use her, I think that, you know, there might be big things for her, but they may not be meaning anything to us. It's just going to be giving us the perception that it means big things for us. But it's going to be the same old until you come up out of it. So, until you realize, okay? So, again, what I was stopping to say is, I think that we should be working towards, I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to be in my town passing out certain things, leading them to certain, and I hope nobody minds, but I will be putting certain groups that I'm not selling them or nothing, okay? But I will be putting other people that I respect and that I've watched their work and I trust them to give something more towards the truth to the people on those flyers, and I will be passing them out. Okay. It would be nice to even get someone where school starts to go out in front of some of these schools and start passing these things out. If they can go out there and pass out Bibles, then you know what I'm saying. We should be able to be fine with giving, and you have to be very a step ahead of the game when it comes to this. Like not writing fact that these things are factual. Maybe asking questions like the Jehovah Witnesses do. Do you think that this, and this, and that? In that manner. So you have to be real crafty like them in order to not have somebody coming at you possibly with distributing this information and leading them to people that can fill them in on things in order to get them started so they can then do their own research. And the more of us that are doing this type of work, we can come up with some kind of conclusions. But if we're all the older, in our late 20s, 30s, 40s, and we're just, circulating the information amongst us. If this is for our youth, we need to get them involved. And I think that they will be a really good asset to what's going on here. And it will help empower them and bring them back up a notch because they need this. Again, once you know you Aboriginal, it does something to you. You walk different, you talk different, you have a certain frequency around you. Again, okay, that was off topic. But I think that is very smart to do. That's how you get in touch with a lot of people at one time, and it's not just online or on Facebook. We have to move around and get this going into the real life aspect. We need to figure out what's going on with the census and all this other stuff that's going on this year, because I'm telling you, whatever's going on in 2020 is going to be a massive change. I don't know which way it's going to go. I can't tell you that, but there's going to be a massive wake up call for everyone, including us. And if you don't get a head start, you're going to be left behind. So, okay. That he was sometimes called the Moses of the colored Exodus. So if they're going to sometimes call him that, then that must mean that there's different Moseses as well. So Moses would be a certain title for one that does a certain type of work. Okay. Just like Jesus. Okay. But the Christ, okay, is something also that comes with a certain spiritual aspect that can enter a soul of a man, of a earthling or mankind, okay, indigenous or offspring of the earth, can encounter this, okay, from what we read the other day. So again, there was another guy that was, I think, called like a Moses, or his name might have been Moses. Chief Moses, I believe his name was. And I want to say it was somewhere in the Florida area that had something to do with, I can't remember what tribe, and I don't want to misquote. So I think it was Chief. No, we already did some on Chief Moses of the Plains. But this guy, I think, was a Seminole Indian. And I don't know if it's Moses exactly. I just can't remember. But he was said to lead his people out. Okay. Or be called that. The blacks who decided to emigrate, again, we can just look at that term. And then compare it to immigrants. Okay. So soon acquired the nickname the Exodusters. The black refugees associated Kansas with the Underground Railroad, which also John Brown had something to do with. Oh, okay. Yeah. Harriet Tubman or whatnot. Okay. And the fiery abolition. I always want to say abolitionist. Abolitionist John Brown, and were particularly responsive to opportunities to settle here. Handbills and flyers distributed by the Nicodemus Town Company portrayed Nicodemus as a place for African Americans. Okay, so now we're talking about African Americans again. To establish, but listen closely when they're saying this. African Americans to establish. When it's talking about colored, it's saying to come and join. Like even we're talking about here, the bridegroom and his friends. And the bridegroom and his friends. And he must become greater and greater. Okay? And I think they were talking about, yeah, the crowds will naturally go to the main attraction. Okay. So, um, yeah, so now we've changed it back to talking about African Americans to establish black self-government. So again, these had now these this is where you can probably really apply this term African American. This is just off the top. Again, I didn't do deep research on this. I never really do when I come to you guys with this. I do what I can for a couple of days a week, go over some things, really use a spiritual aspect to sift through it. Um, and what I'm trying to say is I don't write anything in stone. I just keep it there because you never know when this other piece, it's like putting a puzzle together, is going to come to put it all together. But when it comes to that bronze serpent, that in my eyes is done with. And that's the way I'm seeing the serpent. Okay. So anyhow, it's just tricky when they're trying to trick you and you're trying to, be very observant. So this might be the time when they can use that because they would have let these Africans establish a government, never a Aboriginal. And if they try to tell you something like that, it's a lie. Uh, Even your Obama, okay, is still part of their bloodlines, and he's still not what I call a ADOS American. And that's not to throw shade. I'm never throwing shade. But shade is gonna come because people gonna get in their feelings. What I'm just basically trying to do is clarify things for us and not bring separation with us dealing with other people, but to lay the foundation and the groundwork as to what it is, and we should just follow that in order to discern in the future that everyone that looks like you ain't you. They don't come from the same uh, phenotype or the same attributes as you, and they're not looking for your best interest. So when we're talking about some of these people, I'm not saying they're all bad. I'm not saying they all wanted to do, they were not forced or, manipulated or tortured to do some of these things, but I'm just trying to lay it straight just to show you that you are different. Okay? If you're not original to this land, you are a foreign entity. And respect needs to be shown to the so-called ancient gods of the land. You cannot try to do that when it comes to natives. Again, they don't dig too much into native history because they know that they are not the original. It would be too much to explain. You see? So it's just to be aware when you're dealing with these type of people as to what they've been here used for a very long time. And this is why they don't really deal with you when they come over here now to take jobs. You worried about so-called Mexicans or Hispanics taking your jobs. Okay, at least they're indigenous to the land. At least they're original to the land. Okay, they're a subgroup or a race that is original to, not original, but indigenous to the land. Unlike the people that's trying to tell them that we need a border wall. Do you see what I'm saying? Unlike the so-called Africans that they bring over here in droves and give them all kind of scholarships and turn them into doctors when they can do the same thing right here in the hood. You have to understand that there is agenda against the American Aborigine because this is your land and they stole it. This is why things have been hidden. It's not because of the color of your skin and people, I don't want to touch a black person. It's not that kind of race. It's not that kind of thing. Okay? Again, race is about the race to the top. They've already pretty much won that in my eyes. But again, you can always come out of it. Okay? Hey everyone, sorry for the abrupt ending, but I ended up letting this video run too long, and so I'm going to go ahead and separate it into two different videos. It's just a little bit easier for me to do it this way. Again, don't forget to comment, rate, and subscribe to the channel. And what was I going to say? Oh, and then oh yeah, if you want to join us on the Facebook group at American Aborigines Unchained, it's just a lot of people sharing a lot of different information about our situation, current and past. There's very wide range um, of soul siblings that are in tune with all different areas of this aspect. Um, so yeah, it's just we're just putting information there, storing it there, in hopes to bringing more people in that may not be aware of the things that are being done and have been done. So we have some very intelligent people in there that are dropping stuff that just make me think all the time. And they're sharing all kind of information that could benefit us. So again, I want to thank you guys for watching, and stay tuned. Part 2 will be coming up after this.